Anabolic Warfare Project GDA. What's up, PricePlow Nation? This is a good-looking bottle right here. Project GDA. GDA stands for Glucose Disposal Agent. This is the newest of Anabolic Warfare's Project Muscle series. We've been covering all these supplements all year long. They brought a lot of the Turk back in 3 of their different supplements and a whole lot of very, very unique formulas. What I'm excited about here, this is a low-cost glucose disposal agent. A lot of these ingredients are sometimes very, very costly, $50, $60 for a run, and beginners are kind of put off by that, and some people are even afraid that some of these types of supplements are going to drop their blood sugar too much. I don't believe in that, but just in case, some people want a lower cost option, and this is it. So what this is basically a tool that you use to get your carbohydrates into the muscle cells for faster and more powerful and more efficient glycogen reload, as opposed to letting your blood sugar just sit there and fester in your bloodstream, which becomes toxic for people, especially if you're on a high carb and high fat diet where you just have too much going on. You got to store fat, you got to store carbs, and you're out of time, you're out of space. That's what leads to numerous different disease states. However, so a lot of these ingredients here are often used for like medical reasons, we'll say, healthcare reasons for people who are overweight or obese, and I do support that. But in our case, for anabolic warfare, we're actually chasing muscle gains. We want to use this in conjunction with heavy or with solid resistance training, maybe high volume resistance training, to get all the most out of our carbs, get the carbs where they belong, into the muscle tissue. That's the point of a glucose disposal agent for us, because that glucose is doing you no good if it's sitting in your bloodstream and your muscles aren't properly sensitized to accept the glucose, and the ingredients inside of this do that. So right off the bat, we're gonna go through this label, but right off the bat, I'm excited because it's a lower cost one. So we have on the top of the label 300 micrograms of chromium coming from Trax chromium nicotinate glycinate chelate, which is bound to glycine. Chromium being a very, very essential mineral nutrient. It's the one that has the percent daily value up top. And I personally, and we've talked about this a lot on the channel, I think a lot of people are chromium deficient, and I think it's causing a lot of problems. This is 857% of the daily recommended value of chromium. So if you take 3 capsules of this throughout the day, you're probably set for chromium. Now, chromium helps a lot with insulin, and it's going to help with insulin doing its job. And insulin we can kind of like really briefly call the energy storage hormone. And in order to do its job properly, it needs chromium. And when we're chromium deficient, things start to go very wrong, and it can lead towards like even like poor mood, poor appetite. Your body's craving carbohydrates and fats. Doesn't know what it really needs. Sometimes it just needs more minerals. And I'll put that with like magnesium as well. You should probably get plenty of magnesium. That's one thing that's been stripped out of our food supply. I think chromium's the same way. And so we do have a blog post talking about some of the effects. Chromium binds to a compound known as chromogulin, and it's a little bit out of the scope of this article, but in general, there's a few different ingredients in here that are going to help our bodies upregulate the AMPK enzyme. AMPK, AMPK, we are going to really briefly just say it is like the we need energy now enzyme. And people who are insulin resistant or diabetic or obese, a lot of times their AMPK is way too downregulated. Their energy expenditure is low, and they kind of get stuck in this like downward spiral negative feedback loop. Using ingredients such as chromium, as well as there's going to be berberine, and there's a couple others here to upregulate AMPK, can be really paramount in increasing energy expenditure and getting our bodies to become more insulin sensitive to accept in the muscle cells, hopefully you're training. Because once eventually your muscle cells will be full, or you're not going to have anywhere to put this glycogen. But if you're training, to get those muscle cells to accept our carbohydrates, chromium helps with that, and it helps insulin work better. It helps our bodies produce insulin more efficiently too. So no matter what you do, make sure that if it's in your multivitamin, it's in your GDA, it's somewhere, you're getting enough chromium in your diet. And finally, the cool thing is that this chromium is bound to glycine. In general, our small intestine's not really good at just absorbing minerals on its own, but it's great at absorbing amino acids. So what they do is they bind the mineral to an amino acid like glycine that we're really good at taking in, and then we kind of Trojan horse the chromium inside. That's why why I like glycine bound or amino acid bound minerals. Now moving on, we get to the herbs. We have Gymnema sylvestre, which is a powerful herb that is going to work alongside of chromium, and it's going to help reduce blood sugar levels. Now, some of these ingredients that help reduce blood sugar levels just get you to pee it out. We don't want that. We want ingredients that are going to use it to upregulate AMPK and to get the blood glucose into the muscle cells through like mechanisms of insulin sensitivity, and that's what Gymnema does here. It's full of gymnemic acids, and we have a 500 milligram dose here. This is able to increase insulin secretion. So sometimes, and I don't like to rely on this too much, like if you have a diabetic, you're slamming more and more insulin at them, that's really just going to cause them to store more fat. But when we're training hard, anabolic warfare, this is for like weightlifters, a little bit of insulin, extra insulin secretion could be a good thing. On top of that, it's going to help the pancreatic cells work a little bit better to do that, and it's going to then increase our glucose uptake. Finally, we will get a little bit better of glucose absorption in the intestine. So someone who's actually like dieting and not working out may not want that, but someone who is training hard and working out and eating the carbohydrates is going to want that. So to me, this is like a training aid GDA, and that's exactly what the demographic is here. So next we have a 400 milligram dose of bitter melon extract known as Momordica charantia, and what we have here is another ingredient. This is an ingredient that's going to upregulate AMPK, the we need energy now enzyme, and so that's going to work alongside of chromium. And we're also going to get two forms of PPAR upregulation. This is going to help increase mitochondrial biogenesis, creating more mitochondria in our cells. Mitochondria being like the power plant that produces all the ATP. We need more mitochondrial. Mitochondrial dense cells are energy like consumers, and we need as much mitochondrial health as possible. And then finally, there's also going to be an increase in fat burning from some of the mechanisms induced here. Now, the next ingredient you've heard of a zillion times, it's cinnamon, and it's 300 milligrams of cinnamon. Why is cinnamon in here? Well, what cinnamon is a bit of an insulin mimicker, actually, and it really helps. There's a couple compounds inside that we talk about in the blog post that actually help the body, kind of works like insulin and helps your body store more of the glucose that we have. So sometimes these insulin mimickers are there to like kind of double down on the mechanism without having to like perhaps take more insulin. And then in general, studies have shown that in taking cinnamon helps with better glycemic control. So again, like if you're an overweight person who's not training, it might train your body to actually store the blood sugar as fat, which is, in my opinion, honestly, is better. It's protective. It's better than just keeping it toxic in your bloodstream. But for people who are training, taking carbs with this, working out hard, it's gonna get you to put it into the muscle cells where we want it. So up next, we have a 200 milligram dose of berberine. Now, berberine is the most popular glucose disposal agent, and this is not a huge dose. The super clinical dose that's like actually combated pharmaceutical drugs and done better and with lower side effects. The pharmaceutical dose is like 1,500 milligrams. That takes up 3 full capsules itself and would be a lot more expensive. So we're kind of keeping the cost down. This is a good introduction to berberine, and this is the most popular glucose disposal agent because this huge body of research in general. It does a ton of different things to help make you more insulin sensitive. And AMPK, once again, AMPK upregulation is how it's like primarily working. What's cool about berberine is that it's able to correct some of our lipid levels as well. And I think that's kind of like I'm not going to use the word side effect, but as like a secondary effect, that's the word, as a secondary effect to increasing our insulin sensitivity, lowering triglycerides, increasing HDL cholesterol. Pharmaceutical drugs can't really do that as well without like killing the patient. Turns out that there's some ingredients out there that can, and that's why we're really always excited about berberine. Again, not the biggest dose here, but this is like a beginner's dose, and it's got a nice price tag as well. So that's what we're here for. If you're like all in on berberine, then there's other supplements for you. But if you're looking for like a good breadth of different glucose disposal agent ingredients that aren't going to cost you $60, that's kind of where we're at with this one. After that, we have a 100 milligram dose of alpha lipoic acid, ALA. Sometimes ALA is alpha linoleic acid too, so don't confuse them. This is actually a fatty acid that once again is able to upregulate AMPK, and it's able to do so in the liver cells to help you burn more fat out of liver. Now, one of the theories is that if you have a lot of liver fat, then you're basically not going to start burning body fat until liver fat is extinguished first. Body fat is long-term storage. Liver fat is kind of like a shorter-term type storage that can get overdone. So sometimes you have to clear that out before we're going to burn high amounts of body fat. It doesn't totally work that way, but I'm very, very, very big on improving liver health, and it seems that ALA can actually help with that. So this is a good way of hitting that mechanism. After that, we have a 60 milligram dose of Banaba. Now, not banana, but Banaba with a B. What it's big on is corosolic acids. And corosolic acids work in a little bit different way in that they're able to inhibit gluconeogenesis, or your creation of new glucose molecules, so that we're not constantly converting proteins into glucose and then having to store them as well. So this works in an alternate pathway, but overall it helps to lower the overall amount of like glucose load on the body. And so this is one that works a little bit differently than the others that we've been talking about, and we see really good amounts of like blood sugar regulation thanks to Banaba. And by the way, corosolic acid is also very nicely anti-inflammatory. Next, we have vanadyl sulfate. Man, 7 years ago when we started PricePlow, there was really like 2 different GDA ingredients that were really out there before Berberine blew up and everything like that. Vanadyl sulfate and chromium. Those are like the 2 OG glucose disposal agent ingredients, and they're both in here. 50 milligrams of vanadyl sulfate, 20%, which gives us 10 milligrams of vanadyl sulfate. And so this helps normalize glucose and insulin function, and is one of the, like I said, one of the original glucose disposal agent ingredients. It turns out that Berberine works a lot better, so most people switch to Berberine, but there are some, like chromium, it's a mineral, vanadium, and it's a good idea to make sure that we have enough of all the minerals that our body may need. But once again, we are stimulating glucose uptake into the cell. And when it comes to vanadyl sulfate or vanadium, it's another ingredient that helps with hepatic insulin sensitivity, clearing out some of the liver fat from the liver, because once again, we got to clear that out before we're going to start working on body fat in the first place. And last but not least, we have a non-GDA ingredient, but you got a little bit extra room in those 3 capsules, 25 milligrams, Grains of Paradise extract, 12.5% extracted standardization for 6-paradol. Now, this is not, sadly, this is not a clinical dose. You would need a little bit more. The clinical doses are 30 and 40 milligrams per day. This is 25 milligrams. But in general, Grains of Paradise is a thermogenic ingredient that can upregulate the actual mitochondrial biogenesis through the conversion of white adipose tissue, WAT, to brown adipose tissue, BAT. And so we're big on the whole science behind this, upregulating non-shivering thermogenesis and boosting our energy expenditure through that mechanism. But the energy expenditure is about 100 calories a day or so, was boosted at the 30 and 40 milligrams per day. So I don't know how much I can really say here, but in general, the mechanism is really cool. It's just that I wish there was like 5 more milligrams here, but hey, maybe that's all they had space for. So in general, Project GDA, pretty cool supplement, especially at the price tag that they're selling for. So if you're new to a glucose disposal agent, I honestly think you're going to get great benefits just from the chromium alone. That's a solid dose, but this is a great way of trying Berberine. Now, one thing I do have a dispute with this label, and I'm going to have to argue, but they say to take it 3 capsules after consuming a high carbohydrate meal with 8 to 12 fluid ounces of water. I say take it before the high carbohydrate meal because you want to sensitize your cells before you take the carbs. But in general, like, there's many ways you could do this. Take it with the highest carb meal of the day, space it out, 2 capsules in the morning, 1 in the night, 1 capsule before each meal. In my opinion, it's not so strong you aren't going to have any problems, but you're probably going to start noticing that if you start driving a huge amount of carbohydrates in before working out, take this, 3 capsules of this, your biggest carb meal of the day, then go work out. A lot of people get crazy pumps. Drink a bunch of water, but that blood sugar pump, like the glycogen pump, is awesome when taking a GDA in that manner. So I say 3 capsules before a huge carb meal. Hopefully not so many carbs that it makes you sluggish in your workout though. So anyway, that's it. PricePlow.com/anabolic-warfare is where you can check out our Anabolic Warfare news and check out the blog post, which will be in the YouTube description. In general, very excited. My Protein had a glucose support supplement that was low cost, really good introductory stuff. It's been out of stock since forever. It may never come back, so I'm glad to see that we have a good replacement with it in Project GDA. Thanks for watching.